Hello chess friends. Today we are going to take a look at some of the greatest queen sacrifices in chess history. And this was not an easy pick for me when I was preparing for this video because there are thousands and thousands of brilliant queen sacrifices in chess. And all of them are spectacular. But I wanted something that is not just spectacular but also something that is instructive and you can use in your own games. I mean you can implement those ideas in your own games. And that's where that's the important part of it, right? So, what's the one thing that is common among all the top chess elites? One thing that they have all claimed they have studied. It's the chess classics. Yes, you can't beat the classics. Just as in music, sports, science, or any other field, knowing the history of that particular field is crucial. The same goes for chess. The idea behind that thought is not to memorize the brilliant games, but when time comes, it's to implement those ideas in our own games, and that's how improvement happens. So here, in this video, rather than showing you some spectacular random sacrifices, I'm just going to show you three examples of queen sacrifices which are recurring themes. It's a kind of a chess pattern that keeps repeating, and you can benefit a lot from it. So here's the first example. This was a game played between Levitsky versus the legendary grandmaster Frank J. Marshall. It's black to move and win. And yes, it's many of you might have already guessed the game is the famous gold coin game, one of the most celebrated games in the history of chess. And the sacrifice made by Marshall in this game is aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And it is said that when Marshall played this move, the audacity of the move was such that the chessboard was showered with the gold coins. You know, the audience showered the chessboard with gold coins. It was such a brilliant move. So did Marshall really get those gold coins? Yes, he did. And I'm just not sure about the showering stuff. But anyway, put on your Marshall hat and try to find Black's next move. It's queen to g3. Here we go, sacrificing the queen, and it's one of the greatest queen sacrifices in chess history. And it has to do not just with the appearance, but also the idea behind it. The queen can be captured by three pieces, but it's utterly lost for white no matter what he does. For example, first things first, the threat is to play queen takes h2 checkmate, so white must react. What happens if we capture the h pawn? Well, knight e2 is checkmate because the rook's file has been opened up, right? So what happens if the f pawn capture? This time the other rook's file has been opened up, so we can play knight e2 check, forcing the king away, and after that rook f1 is checkmate. Well, you might say, okay, I can take the queen with the queen, and what's wrong? Where's the mate? In this variation, white loses a lot of material. For example, knight e2, king h1 captures, and again here you can see the pin. H pawn cannot capture because it's pinned, it's an absolute pin. And if king goes back to g1, then we can simply save our knight and we are materially ahead. That's completely winning for black. And what happens if the f pawn takes? Then we simply have rook takes f1 checkmate. So no matter what white does here, after queen to g3, white is utterly lost in this position. So that was quite a brilliant game. But you might ask, how is it possibly going to benefit me? You know, well, it certainly did to Mr. Rosellemo. So here is our next example. So here we have our next example, and this is very similar to the Marshall example. This was Nicholas Rosellemo versus Paul Reisman. It's white to play, so it was Rosellemo to play. So you might want to take a pause and try to find the answer. So put yourself in Rosellemo's shoes and try to find the spectacular move that he plays here. And remember, chess patterns always repeat. Okay, so hope you might have found the answer. It's the brilliant move queen to g6. Again, what's with everyone today? Why is everyone sacrificing the queen? Well, the threat is quite obvious. It's to play queen takes h7 checkmate. So black has to react here. Black has to do something. Let's see what happens if the h pawn captures the queen. We just shift the rook to the other side of the board, and that's a checkmate. Rook h3 is mate. What if f takes? Pardon me. Then we have knight takes, that's check, it has to be taken, and again rook h3 is a checkmate. So the queen cannot be captured by the pawns. Well, what happens if the knight is taken? You know, now there is no mate on h7. But this time we have queen f6 check and king g8, and this will just be a mate after something like knight g5. So not working as well. So black desperately tried to defend the mate with queen to c2. He's trying to resist. Now there is no queen at 7 mate because the queen defends. But white again played a spectacular move. He played rook to h3, and again we are threatening rook at 7, checkmate, and the queen again cannot be captured. For example, if queen takes queen, we can simply play. You might want to find the move yourself. We can just take the queen, and after pawn takes, we have rook to h7, checkmate. So you see this move, queen to g6. This was inspired by the game of Marshall. So Marshall played this move, and Rosellimo implemented the same idea in his own game. So he not just studied that game, but he used this in his own game. So that's the idea of studying the classics. Now, let us go to the third example. By the way, it's unfortunate that this time there was no gold coins for Rosellimo, and that's really sad. Okay, it seems that Mr. Rosellimo benefited from studying the classics. And the third game I'm going to show you is of none other than the great Alexander Elyakhin, the man whose determination, hard work, dedication, and love for the game is an inspiration for all of us. So let's take a look at the third example. So this is a game of the legendary Alexander Elyakhin, and the reason I'm showing you this queen sacrifice over all other, I mean there are thousands of brilliant queen sacrifices in chess, but the reason I'm showing you particularly this example is because I want to show you how chess patterns can repeat themselves and how you can use these ideas in your own game. You know, it's one thing to look at a spectacular brilliant sacrifice, but it's completely different thing to implement it in your own games, and the legends just keep doing these things again and again. So here is white to play, and white was Alexander. So you might take a pause and try to find the answer. It's again very similar to the Marshall example and the Rosellimo example. It has the same shadows of the great Marshall game. White here plays queen to g6, hanging the queen, again hanging the queen. It's a nice day today. Here we go again. The queen is put on a square where it can be captured by two of the pawns. But it turns out that white is winning by force here no matter what black plays. And the threat, let me just show you the threat. The threat is to play queen takes g7, and that comes with a checkmate. Right, so let's go to the obvious moves. Let's see if black tries to defend that. Now white simply sacrifices the queen, and after king takes, we have rook to h3, checkmate. The knight guards this g6 square, so that's a checkmate. Alright, so let's see what happens if the h pawn takes. Very similar to the last example, we can play rook to h3, checkmate. The g8 square is guarded by the knight. Brilliant. What happens if f pawn takes? You can see that the bishop's diagonal has been opened up. So all you have to do here is open up the h file. So knight takes, pawn takes, and rook to h3 is a mate in one. I mean, after the queen desperately gives itself up, we just capture, and that's a mate. So numerous players have benefited from studying these classics, and the time you invest in this is really it really pays off. So that's the reason I've showed you this particular queen sacrifices. I mean, these are great queen sacrifices, and there are thousands of others. But it's always a good idea to use use a particular theme in your own games, and that's how chess patterns repeat themselves. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.